Hey travelers, welcome back to the channel. If you thought 2025 was going to be all about exploring the globe, think again. The United States is facing a shocking reality. Countries around the world are turning their backs on America. Pause from declining tourism to canceled alliances. These nations are saying no to U.S. influence and U.S. tourists. In this video, we're counting down the top 10 countries that have distanced themselves from the USA in 2025. Picture this. You're planning your dream vacation to Europe or Asia, passport in hand, ready to explore. But wait, some countries don't want you there anymore. In 2025, the United States is experiencing a dramatic shift in its global standing. According to recent surveys by Ipsos, global approval of the U.S. as a positive influence has plummeted from 59% in late 2024 to just 46% today, with even traditional allies like Canada and the UK rethinking their ties. This isn't just about politics, it's about tourism, trade, and trust. President Trump's second term, starting in January 2025, brought bold moves like the 10% across-the-board tariffs under Executive Order 14161, targeting countries with trade deficits. While aimed at boosting American jobs, it sparked retaliation, declining visitor numbers, canceled bookings, and even travel warnings against Americans. A recent global rescue survey found that 72% of Americans feel they'll face worse treatment abroad, reflecting a growing backlash against the U.S. So, why is this happening? Geopolitical tensions, economic policies, and a sense that the U.S. is turning inward have pushed some nations to distance themselves. And for American travelers, it means rethinking those international plans. Let's count down the top 10 countries that have turned their backs on the USA in 2025. Number 10 is a shocker, Mexico. Just south of the border, this long-time travel hotspot for Americans is cooling its welcome. In 2025, Mexico saw a 15% drop in U.S. tourist arrivals, driven by tensions over Trump's immigration crackdown and the 25% tariff on non-USMCA goods. The Mexican government, under pressure from cartels and public discontent, has hinted at travel advisories against Americans, with some regions like Tijuana reporting hostility toward U.S. visitors. Historically, Mexico and the U.S. have been tight. Think NAFTA, now USMCA, but the latest policies have strained that bond. A tourist who recently visited Cancun shared, "I felt stares like I wasn't welcome. Never experienced that before." Economically, Mexico's pivot to Latin American trade partners like Brazil, up 10% in exports, shows a shift away from U.S. reliance. For tourists, this means higher scrutiny at borders and a vibe that says, maybe stay home. Sliding into number 9, we have Brazil. This South American giant is turning its back on the U.S. amid a booming relationship with China. In 2025, Brazil's trade with China jumped 12%, fueled by soy and beef exports, while U.S. imports dropped 8%. Trump's tariffs, including a proposed 12% on non-USMCA goods, didn't help. Brazil's response? A subtle push to limit American tourist visas, with wait times stretching to months. The shift started with environmental disputes. U.S. criticism of Amazon deforestation clashed with Brazil's sovereignty stance. A Rio local told reporters, "We don't need U.S. lectures or their tourists." Tourism data shows a 10% dip in American visitors, with some blaming a cultural backlash. A traveler who recently returned from Brazil noted, "It felt like Americans weren't wanted there anymore. Time to explore elsewhere." For now, the Amazon's wonders are harder to reach for Americans. Visa hassles are real. More surprises ahead. Let's keep going. Number 8 is Turkey, a NATO ally turning cold. In 2025, Turkey's relationship with the U.S. hit a rough patch over Syria and defense deals. Trump's push for reciprocal tariffs, 10% baseline, higher for deficits, led Turkey to slap a 31% tariff on U.S. rice, sparking a trade war. Tourism took a hit, with American visitors down 13%, as Turkey issued warnings about unfriendly U.S. policies. Historically, Turkey balanced East and West, but its pivot toward Russia and China, up 15% in trade, signals a shift. An Istanbul shopkeeper told a local news outlet, Americans bring dollars, but also trouble. A U.S. traveler shared their experience, saying, "I was heckled in Ankara just for being American. It felt unsafe." For travelers, this means tighter visa rules and a less welcoming vibe. Think twice before booking that Cappadocia trip. At number 7, South Africa. This African powerhouse is turning away from the U.S. as it deepens ties with China. In 2025, China-South Africa trade soared 14%, outpacing U.S. imports by 9%. Trump's tariffs, including a 10% hit on non-reciprocal goods, prompted South Africa to limit American tourist visas, citing economic retaliation. Visitor numbers dropped 11%, with Cape Town reporting fewer U.S. faces. The shift reflects a broader BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa realignment, with South Africa hosting summits to boost intergroup trade. A Johannesburg resident told a local journalist, "We're building our own future. U.S. can wait." A recent American visitor to Cape Town noted, "The vibe felt off, like they didn't want us there." For tourists, expect longer visa delays and a cooler reception. Safaris might need a rethink. Number 6 is India. This Asian giant is pulling back from the U.S. amid a trade tug-of-war. In 2025, India's trade with China rose 10%, while U.S. exports faced a 17% tariff barrier under Trump's reciprocal policy. The result? A 12% drop in American tourists, with India tightening visa rules for U.S. citizens, citing unfair trade practices. India's pivot stems from disputes over tech and pharmaceuticals. U.S. pressure on generic drugs clashed with India's market. A Delhi vendor told a travel magazine, "Americans used to flood here. Now they're rare." A U.S. traveler who faced visa delays shared, "The process felt like a punishment. I'll skip India next time." For now, the Taj Mahal's beauty comes with bureaucratic hurdles. Plan accordingly. Number 5 is France, a European stalwart turning its back. In 2025, France saw a 14% decline in American tourists, fueled by Trump's tariffs and U.S. border detentions of European nationals. The EU, led by France, retaliated with travel advisories, warning citizens about U.S. hostility. Macron's push for European autonomy, up 10% in intra-EU trade, signals a break from U.S. influence. Historically, France and the U.S. shared a special bond since World War II, but today, a Parisian told a local reporter, "We don't need American tourists clogging the Louvre." An American who visited Paris recently said, "I felt so unwelcome. I'm not going back." For travelers, expect stricter entry checks and a frosty welcome. Consider skipping that croissant trip. Number 4 is Canada, our northern neighbor turning cold. In 2025, Canada slashed U.S. tourist visits by 24%, driven by Trump's 25% tariff on non-USMCA goods and fentanyl crackdowns. With trade ties strained, exports to the U.S. down 8%. Canada pivoted to Japan and Mexico, up 20% in bookings. Travel warnings against Americans have popped up, with Vancouver locals citing U.S. arrogance. The U.S.-Canada bond, forged by geography and NAFTA, is fraying. An Ottawa resident told a news outlet, "We're better off without U.S. crowds." A traveler who crossed into Canada shared, "The border delays were endless, and the vibe felt hostile." For travelers, border delays and hostility mean rethinking that Toronto getaway. Number 3 is China, the economic giant striking back. In 2025, China's tourism to the U.S. dropped 11%, a retaliation to Trump's tariffs and tech bans. China responded with visa restrictions on Americans, citing U.S. hostility over Huawei and TikTok. Trade with the U.S. fell 9%, while Europe and Asia gained ground. The U.S.-China rivalry, simmering since the trade war, boiled over in 2025. A Beijing citizen told a local journalist, "Americans aren't welcome with these policies." A U.S. traveler who faced visa issues said, "I was denied entry. It felt like China's watching us too closely." For travelers, the Forbidden City is off limits. Visa denials are common. Number 2 is Argentina, the land of tango turning away. In 2025, Argentina banned most American tourists, a bold move amid economic struggles and U.S. tariffs. Trump's 10% tariff on non-reciprocal goods, combined with pressure over IMF debt tied to U.S. influence, pushed Argentina to align with China and Brazil, up 10% in trade. American visitors plummeted 14%, with Buenos Aires reporting fewer U.S. faces due to visa delays and anti-American sentiment. The U.S.-Argentina tension, rooted in decades of economic intervention, escalated in 2025 with asset freezes and trade disputes. A Buenos Aires resident told a local newspaper, "Your tariffs hurt us. Now you're not welcome." A U.S. tourist who recently visited shared, "The visa process felt like a slap. I'll explore elsewhere next time." For tourists, this means no more Patagonia hikes or tango nights. Stay cautious. Number 1. Germany. The ultimate backturn. In 2025, Germany imposed strict travel restrictions on American tourists, a stunning move from a key U.S. ally. Driven by Trump's tariffs and U.S. border detentions of European nationals, e.g., German tourists held for weeks, Germany led the EU in issuing travel advisories. American visitors dropped 15%, with trade shifting 12% toward intra-EU markets as Merkel's successor pushed for autonomy. The U.S.-Germany alliance, forged post-World War II, is fraying under economic and political strain. A Berliner told a travel blog, "We don't need U.S. tourists with these policies." An American who visited Munich recently said, "I felt shunned during Oktoberfest. I'm sticking to the U.S. from now on." For travelers, this means no Oktoberfest or castle tours. Germany's doors are nearly shut.